Damian Bartonic on behalf of Fox West Texas here, and joining me is none other than Beto O'Rourke. Now, tell me a little bit about how this book came to be and how this issue is not only an issue on the left side or the right side, but this is an American issue.
You're absolutely right about this. The book is about how we overcome the challenges ahead of us. They can be daunting, they can be depressing, they can tempt us to despair. But in looking at the stories of our fellow Texans, especially those who preceded us, including the star of this book, a guy named Lawrence Aaron Nixon, who 100 years ago started this fight against the white primary law, which banned all African Americans in Texas from voting from 1923 to 1944. This guy fought this injustice day in, day out, year in, year out. And ultimately, he overcame it and he set the path for the Civil Rights Act of 64, the Voting Rights Act of 65. But this one person who was based in El Paso, Texas, shows us that when we take action, not only is it the key to victory, it's the antidote to despair. We feel better when we have agency, when we're involved, when things aren't happening to us. Instead, we are happening to them. And all of us need that from time to time, myself included. And so stories like Nixon's are stories that inspire me, and I hope give people the comfort of knowing that not only can we overcome the challenges before us, we've overcome them before against much greater odds.
I also want to know about this. I know you graduated Bachelor of Arts with a focus in English literature. And I want to know is whenever you're writing these books, man, is it kind of a tribute to that? Is that always like a big inspiration for you and just a big kind of motivator knowing that like you're kind of going back to your roots in a sense?
I don't know that I made that connection, but now that you asked me, I'll tell you a quick story. When I came home from college and I told my dad I was going to major in English, I had never seen him so disappointed. Here he and my mom were taking out loans. I was taking out loans. I was working a job to help pay for college. And he said, why are we going through all this so that you can read books and tell stories? Become an engineer or an accountant or go through the pre-med program. But I'll tell you what, that English degree and that ability to listen and understand people's stories and connect them to our own and see the larger picture, it served me so well as a business owner when I started a small company in El Paso with 20 employees that we ran for nearly 2 decades. It served me as a city council representative and a member of Congress. And it definitely serves me, as you pointed out, in writing a book that tries to thread together the stories of other Texans who faced hardships and who've overcome them. And as you said at the outset, this is not about Democrats and it's also not about Republicans. It's about people, Americans, human beings who have this indomitable spirit that allows us to persevere and come through. Do we have injustice in our history? Absolutely. But we also have the people who overcome that injustice in our history. And I think that is Texas at its best.
I want to talk about specifically Abilene, San-Angelo, and some of the counties around it. Man, you might have one or two people that'll vote, blue at all. What is kind of the philosophy and the mindset when you're going out to these areas where, man, you're kind of looked at as like a foreign kind of enemy in these parts? What's the mentality like?
I'll tell you what, I've never received a warmer welcome than the one that I just got in San Angelo last week. So looking forward to seeing people in Abilene at Texas Star Trading Company. We're going to be there Sunday at noon to talk about this book. And what it reminds me, Democrat, Republican, independent, or other, is that more than being defined by a partisan label, I'd like to think that we're defined by the fact that we're Texans, that we're human beings, that we're Americans, and we put those things ahead of anything else. And to your point, I've met people in Abilene who say, you know what, Beto, I'd never vote for you. However, I'm grateful that you came to our community. Not enough people do. I've been to even smaller towns, rural counties, and it's the same thing. People don't show up, Democrats or Republicans, don't show up for these folks to listen to their issues, their challenges, and also their dreams and what they hope to achieve for themselves, their families, and for this country. How are we going to bring together this deeply divided country if we don't show up for one another? And we cannot just show up for our own side. We got to show up and listen to people who disagree with us. And I guarantee you when we do, we're going to find that common ground. We won't agree on everything, but we'll agree on enough to be able to move things forward. That's always been America at its best. And I'd love for us to get back to that.
It seems like a lot of politicians on both sides really want to get back to that dialogue. But it seems like we're at a point where both sides want it, but it's really hard to actually make that happen. Why do you feel like that is? Because it seems like everyone wants that.
I agree. And, it's interesting. I've been spending a lot of time on college campuses. We were at Angelo State last week. I was at Texas A&M following that. And young people, again, regardless of party affiliation, they want to see our government work. They want to see people come together, you know, dispense with the talking points and the partisan attacks and get the work done. When I was in Congress, I was in the minority as a Democrat. It was a Republican majority institution at the time. And my number one issue was veterans health care. So in order to get that legislation passed to expand mental health care access for veterans, for example, I had to find Republicans with whom I could work. And it meant that I had to compromise a little bit. It meant that we had to have a consensus piece of legislation. It could not be my way or the highway. I could write the most perfect bill in the world, but it was worth nothing if I couldn't get it passed. And so being willing to give in a little bit to those who see things a little bit differently so that we can move something forward was absolutely key. And we got that bill passed in the House, in the US Senate. And Donald Trump, who I agree with on almost nothing, he signed that legislation into law. So even he and I can work together if the situation calls for it. And again, we need more of that. We need more of that in Texas. We need more of that in this country. I think the people get it. I'm not so sure that the politicians or those currently in office do.
What's next for you? You got the Super Bowl of elections coming up here in November. Tell me what's up with you and what's your focus the next 2/3 of 2024?
We're out day in, day out with an organization called Powered by People, registering eligible Texans to vote. We just want to make sure that whether the issue is public education and defeating attempts to drain our public schools of our tax dollars to turn them into vouchers and send them to private schools, whether it's ensuring that women can make their own decisions about their own body, whether it's just making sure that we're treating one another with the respect and the kindness that you and I are talking about right now. I want to make sure that Texans have the ability to vote, to ensure that that ballot is counted and their voice is heard. So we'll continue to travel the state to register voters, to turn them out ahead of this next election, and just hope to help make Texas that much better for all of us, regardless of party affiliation or where we might happen to live in the state, where I am in El Paso and where you all are in far East Texas in Abilene, at least from our perspective in El Paso.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. O'Rourke, for your time. I told you I was going to have only 10 minutes, and I think we're right at 10 minutes. So I appreciate for the time, man. And God bless.
Thanks, Damien.
Absolutely.
Thank you. You be well.